Hi guys, just to let you know, we've got a brand new website, drcharlieward.com, where all our videos will be loaded over the next few weeks, and you'll be able to view all of those there's no charge for watching any of those. We've moved them all onto our own platform because all the doctor ones, which are very, very important, have been taken down, so we've now got control over those, but every single video we post will be free to watch. That's very important for you to know. The other thing is we're getting an awful lot of people asking us about gold and silver. And I've always been an advocate of gold and silver. And myself, I'm not in a position to give financial advice. I'm not qualified to do so. I'm just going to tell you what I've personally done. I've personally bought gold and silver, and I've used a company that I trust, which is shown below here. They've always looked after me well. And if you order from them more than £250 worth, you get a free 1 ounce silver coin, which is very, very nice. It's a nice little gift. But this is not an endorsement. This is just what I have done personally, and it's up to you. It's your choice. As I said, I'm not qualified to give the advice on financial advice, but it's just what I have done personally. And I hope you enjoy it. And I hope you enjoy watching all of my videos. Thank you.
Yeah, what a fascinating time, hey?
Totally. The world is the world is in a place that I didn't predict it to be, but here we are.
Yeah, no, I wasn't planning on this. I can assure you. But it's been the most exciting time of my entire life. And of course, most of the people that have seen what's going on were jumping for joy when it suddenly leaked out on Fox News that this was all a pantomime.
Well, actually, I remember when I read the book 1984 by George Orwell. I think I was in high school. I don't know if he had some kind of psychic insight, or he had some inside information, or maybe he was even part of it and he was just subtly preparing everyone. I don't know, but I thought that was totally fiction when I read it, but I guess it wasn't.
Isn't it a lesson, hey? And we're learning so much in life about how people are able to see into the future. And, Project Looking Glass was an eye-opener for me in 2020. I'd never even heard of it, never knew anything about it. And then you start doing research about Project Looking Glass, and you look back and go, people have been able to look into the future for a very long time. They've been able to plan. It was something we never knew anything about. But then when you talk to so many spiritual people, and that's where you have to be careful, because there are some fake spiritualists out there, and there's some extremely good ones, and you get a certain feeling because they're on the same vibration. When you talk to certain people that can see things happening, some of them call it channeling. Some people call it Project Looking Glass. They have different terminologies, but it's the same thing. Looking forward and seeing what's actually happening and seeing what's coming.
Well, actually, it's interesting because I think there's three kinds of, I'm sure there's more than three, but three come to my mind, types of psychics or mediums. One are just total frauds. They know they're frauds. They have no abilities whatsoever. Two are actually sincere people. They're very sincere. They do want to help, but they're just not that gifted or talented. And then there's this category of sincere and gifted and talented psychics or mediums or psychic mediums, and they somehow tap into this.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. And when they tap in, the first time I ever came into touch with a medium or a psychic that could tap in was when I lost my firstborn son, and I went into a dark place. It was not nice. When you lose a firstborn son, you visit areas in your life that you didn't know were there. And I felt pretty awful for a period of time. And I went to see a psychic just to see what direction I should be going and what had happened, what was going on really in my life. And when I was a child, about 12 years old, I used to have a reoccurring nightmare. And I've even mentioned it in my book. My reoccurring nightmare was that I was my great-great-grandfather, and I was running a shoe business, which was what our family business was. And the people weren't working like they worked for my father. For me, they weren't working. They were relaxing too much. And that was my nightmare as a child. And I couldn't get them to work. I never told my father what my nightmare was. Never told him, but I just told him I had nightmares. And he prayed that I wouldn't have it. And from that day forward, I never had those nightmares. And that had obviously buried away deep inside me. So when I saw the medium, I was at that age, Lee passed 12 years ago, last week. So I was 48. And I hadn't told anybody from 12 to 48 years old. Hadn't told anybody. And when I sat down there and the medium started describing exactly my dream as a child, and she said, that's where the darkness is coming from. And I just sat there and went, I need to start understanding you, because you've just told me my childhood nightmare that I have never shared with anybody. How did you see that? And of course, you start to question it. We're going to go into that right now, where people are going to go, why didn't I see it? Why didn't I question it? Why? You know, these sort of things. When you start to find out the truth, and you find out that so many things have not been what we thought they were, and that we're all going to have to dig deep inside ourselves. I'm lucky because I had a head start. It started from when I was 23, of coming out of the religious cult and having to find out who I was, and then revisiting that different areas that I'd put in a box and hidden away and never opened that box again, as we men do. We put things in boxes and hide them. And I had to revisit it when I lost my son. And on this whole journey, I've had to revisit a number of things. It's a bit like a spring cleaning exercise for the last 12 months of cleaning out all the shit so that we can actually enjoy the wonderful time that we're living in.
Well, it's interesting. I had a pretty cool experience with a psychic medium, and I already told you what I thought about psychic mediums in general, but
yep.
Check this out. So there's a guy named Koichi Tohei, who is a very famous Aikido master from Japan. And he was a real master of ki, Ki, which is the Japanese word for energy, kind of like the Chinese would say chi, or the Indians would say prana, or in English we'd say energy. And I read a book by him about 6 years ago or so, and I've studied him quite a bit since. But anyway, in his book, he shows a series of stretching, nothing major. It's almost like stretching you might have done in, elementary school class. It's or middle school, we call it in the US class. It's very basic stretching. But he was very strong on, these are good stretches. These are good stretches to do every day. And there's maybe 7 of them. So I just started doing them. I started doing these 7 stretches every day. And I did them pretty much every day for a while. I still do them. It takes maybe 3 minutes to do all 7 stretches. Anyway, about 3 months ago, I just stopped doing the 7th stretch for no reason at all. I just stopped the 7th stretch. And I said to myself mentally, I'll start again soon. I'm just taking 3 weeks off or 4 weeks off from this 7th stretch. No reason whatsoever. I just stopped doing it. But I said, I'll start doing it again. Now, no one knew I was doing these stretches. And even if someone did know I was doing these stretches, maybe I mentioned to someone, oh, I'm doing the stretches from the Koichi Tohei book. Certainly no one in this universe in a body knew that I stopped the 7th stretch. There was no way. I never mentioned it. I was always alone when I did these stretches. I had no contact. I was always alone doing them. And I never mentioned to anybody that I stopped the 7th stretch. Well, anyway, I went to my office. I'm a chiropractor, as you know. Mm-hmm. I went to my office, and one of my patients, who is one of those that I mentioned, these gifted psychic mediums, she's my patient. And she says to me, oh, Koichi Tohei wants to tell you something, when she saw me. And I thought that was pretty odd. That I think she might have heard of Koichi Tohei. I don't know if she had heard of him. I think I probably mentioned him to her, but I certainly didn't mention to her that I did his stretches. And even if I did, there is no freaking way that I mentioned to her that I stopped the 7th stretch. That definitely didn't happen. And then anyway, the 7th stretch, you kind of move your body backwards. The first 6, you move your body forward. She says, yeah, Koichi Tohei wants to tell you something, which I was pretty amazed that Koichi Tohei wants to tell me something. But anyway, she says, he wants you to go like this. And then she did the 7th stretch. I mean, she did the freaking 7th stretch. So anyway, that's a pretty cool story. And that's a legit psychic medium. So they do exist.
They do. And and this is where we're moving from darkness into light. On that journey, the light stands out a lot brighter against the darkness. And we're starting to see the difference between the two. And there are plenty of, there's the spiritualists out there. There's truthers out there as well that can't tell the truth, that are just trying to boost their numbers on YouTube or what have you, or boost their numbers rather than focusing on the truth. When we started this journey, the numbers never ever impressed me. It wasn't about that. It was about getting the truth out. If I could get it out to as many people as possible, and Lee was the same. Let's just try and get the message out. Let's try and get the message out there somehow. And that's all we focus on, getting the message out rather than the numbers. It's very interesting. The people that worry about the numbers can't get the numbers. The people who worry about the truth can get the truth out.
I've seen that with you so many times, Charlie, that, you everybody has a piece of the truth, and you value that in each person. You know that they have a value, and you treat them that way. And that's just really been amazing. I have to tell you, since we last met in the end of December, it has created a firestorm of people looking for these zone doctors, which Dr. Pete is the owner of the zone school. And it's pretty incredible that there's hundreds, maybe thousands of people that have watched your video or our video interview we did. And they have sought these doctors out, and the healings that have taken place as a result of that has just been nothing short of a miracle. And the funny thing is that we have a private Facebook group with the zone doctors, and we got several people that were saying, several doctors that were saying, it's like, well, who is this Charlie Ward guy? I got all these calls from people coming in from this interview that Greg and Charlie did. And I don't know who he is, but all these people are coming in wanting to be new patients. So you've created a whole circle of healing out there. And so a few of us were talking about that, and they said, well, maybe we could get Dr. Pete on with Charlie, and he could, talk to you about a lot of those things. And I talked to your team about it, and they thought that was a brilliant idea. And so I have to tell you, Tara is just amazing. I think you need to give her a big raise, because she has been so pleasant with dealing with her and talking with her and getting everything set up. So I want to kind of turn it over to Dr. Pete, because he's the true healer here. So I've seen amazing Jesus type miracles at the live events that I've gone to with him. So I'm going to let Pete take it over here.
Well, that was quite an intro. I hope I can live up to it. So let me say a couple things in reference to Charlie about the word truth. When it comes to truth and healing, this is what I think. Theories are a dime a dozen, and facts are a separate category. Now, if we had a panel here, of course, this is the three of us now, but if we had a panel of, X amount of doctors or healers, and we had, 2 medical doctors and 2 homeopaths and 2 naturopaths and 2 chiropractors and 2 acupuncturists and 2 Reiki masters and 2 energy workers and 2 Christian Science practitioners, whatever. And I respect all those, of course. And, let's say everyone gave a little talk. Let's say Charlie said, okay, I'm going to give you all a few minutes each, and you can explain what you do. And of course, the homeopath would probably give a pretty eloquent speech about homeopathy, which I happen to like a lot. And the naturopath would, and talk about herbs and eating and things like that. And maybe we'd even have a yogi who would talk about pranayama, which is a type of breathing. and asanas, which is of course the postures in hatha yoga, which is the physical branch of yoga. And of course, you might have a few chiropractors talking about their type of chiropractic technique. I think there's 300 different techniques in chiropractic. And you might even have some medical doctors and some holistic medical doctors. And of course, everyone's going to give hopefully a pretty eloquent speech about what they do. And, you know, some of the listeners and Charlie and myself and Greg, we might be pretty impressed that, wow, this sounds good. I'm going to make an appointment with an acupuncturist or a homeopath or a chiropractor who does this. But at the end of the day, results are results. Results speak louder than words. Results supersede all these eloquent speeches. Because if someone unfortunately walks into one of their offices with, you know, Parkinson's or MS or, you know, severe migraine headaches or, you know, endometriosis, which is a gynecological issue, or panic attacks or depression or anxiety or a weak immune system or whatever, the only thing that matters is who here on this panel is going to fix it. Like, who can fix it? Who can actually put this to bed? Who can take the person with debilitating migraines and make them never have a headache again? Who can take the person with a weak immune system and help them have a strong, normal immune system? Who can take the woman who's having debilitating period cramps and have her basically have no cramps when she has her period? Who can take the woman who can't get pregnant, she can't conceive? All these doctors said, hey, we tried everything, you just can't conceive, and get her to be able to conceive. So at some point, results just supersede all these beautiful speeches, as sincere as they may be. So when it comes to truth and healing, and I'm not dismissing any type of healing, I mean, as a matter of fact, I'll just say, let's just say, Charlie, let's just say that I wasn't a big fan of, I don't know, I'm just making this up because it's not true. Let's just say I was not a big fan of acupuncture, which actually I am, but let's just say I wasn't. And I said, nah, I don't like acupuncture. It's not for me. I don't really think it's that great. But Greg said to me, hey, Pete, I know this acupuncturist. They're located here. They help people with all those things. People come to them who are very, very ill, and they get a series of acupuncture treatments, and they're all better. They're totally healthy. They're walking around with a body that functions great head to toe and feels great head to toe. I would say, good, give me their information. I'm going to refer people to them. So for me, results completely overtake and supersede and trump any philosophy or theory or technique or path to anyone has to healing. The results trump everything. So with that said, the zone technique, which Dr. Greg was talking about, is something that I teach in my school. It's called the Zone School of Healing. And I teach in the Zone School something called the Zone Technique. And I also teach the principles of healing, I would say, on the highest level that one can find on this earth. Now, you know, Charlie, you might have a guest on the show next week or last week. You might have had one. And, you know, they might be they might be a chiropractor themselves, or they might be a homeopath. And like I said 5 minutes ago or so, everyone's going to give an eloquent speech about what they do. But I would say that if you look at the results that Zone Technique achieves, they're unparalleled on the planet at the moment. I don't know what was happening in Atlantis 7,000 years ago, or, you know, or in Egypt, you know, I don't know about the history of the world of healings. Maybe there was someone in the Himalayas. You just walk up to them and they just tap you on the forehead and you totally heal physically, mentally, and spiritually. Okay, well, that's good. I'd like to learn that. But in the meantime, as far as present day goes, I can confidently say, as far as I'm aware of, and I'm pretty aware of healing, nothing is like Zone Technique. As a matter of fact, for 20 plus years, people have been flying into me from all over the world who have had these severe health issues. And I'm not only talking about non-musculoskeletal, like the ones I've mentioned. I even mean musculoskeletal, where they're supposed to have, you know, disc surgery in their neck or whatever. They're, you know, their lobe, you know, their back, and they're supposed to have surgery in their back, whatever. And these people are flying into me after they've been to, you know, a few chiropractors, a few naturopaths, a few homeopaths, a few acupuncturists, a few MDs, and they're totally sick. They can't heal. they fly into me or they come to me in some way and they get all better. So in the spirit of that, about, I think it was about 3.5 years ago or so, even though I've been doing this for 20 plus years, I remember thinking to myself, I was kind of just thinking, I'm like, Pete, talking to myself, I go, it's pretty cool that people are flying into you from 25 plus different countries and cities around the world for healing. It's pretty cool that people are coming to you for everything under the sun after they've tried everything else. Nothing has worked and they heal. But this is what happened, Charlie. It's kind of a cool story. I had a guy, he's Canadian, but he lives in Malaysia. I think he owns a chain of gyms in Malaysia, Canadian guy. This is about 6 years ago or so. And he's supposed to get disc surgery and they tell him he can never do, this guy's a very athletic guy. They tell him you can never do sports again, you're gonna get disc surgery, whatever. He tries everything under the sun. He goes to all these doctors. Now it happens that a lot of famous mixed martial artists are my patients. Just, I've been a martial artist my whole life, so maybe they find me because of that. I don't know. But anyway, I have a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I used to be a Kyokushin fighter, if anyone knows what that is. So whatever. So these fighters find me because they figure, oh, well, Dr. Pete, he's a fighter and he's a healer. He's a doctor, so we'll go to him, whatever. So a very famous fighter named BJ Penn, who's retired now, is one of the best MMA fighters in history. He hurt his neck in 2004. And I'm going to get back to the Canadian guy in Malaysia in a moment. But in 2004, BJ Penn hurt his neck very badly. And, he went to, like I said, acupuncture and chiropractors and medical doctors. And they said, look, BJ, even though you're the world champ and you're one of the best fighters ever, and you're fairly young, this guy's neck was in so much pain. They said, we're going to have to do neck surgery on you and you have to retire. So that was, or we're going to do neck surgery on you or you have to retire. We'll see how it plays out. But he found out about me. We had some mutual friends, and in 3 days, we fixed him 100%. And anyone who follows MMA, since 2004, BJ Penn, his career had its ups and downs, but you never heard about his neck again. So anyway, this guy, back to the Canadian dude in Malaysia who owns the gyms, he's not a professional athlete, but he's an athletic guy who likes martial arts, and he was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he was a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is kind of in the middle, but he's a tough guy. He's played ice hockey like a lot of Canadians do. So he's living in Malaysia and he hurts his neck and he goes to 4 orthopedists because he wants just one of them to say, hey, you know what? You don't need neck surgery. We'll work with you with something, physical therapy, or we'll send you to a chiropractor, something. He's looking for just one person to say, we can help your neck. But they all 4 say, you need neck surgery. So he hears about me because of the BJ Penn and other fighters, their experiences. He calls me from Malaysia. He flies to see me and fix him up. He was told he'd have to stop jiu-jitsu forever. Meanwhile, he was a purple belt. He goes back, gets his black belt. He's thrilled. He tells all these Malaysian dudes. And these guys are, they're jiu-jitsu guys too, because they know him from the jiu-jitsu community. And, these doctors are like, if you keep doing jiu-jitsu, you're going to end up in a wheelchair. They're telling these guys that. Mm-hmm. And, they're showing them their MRIs. And, the young guys are 29 years old. They start flying into me. We're fixing them up one by one. Just in a week, they see me 4 or 5 times in a week. They're totally healed. Go back to Malaysia. They're winning tournaments in jiu-jitsu, training all the time. So anyway, now back to 3.5 years ago or so, I'm thinking about this. I'm like, I have 12 freaking guys from Malaysia. But Charlie, a lot of these guys were fairly, I don't want to say poor, but they didn't have a lot of money. So they're like selling T-shirts to raise money for their plane ticket to come to see me. They're having like bake sales or like baking stuff and trying to raise money. And I'm thinking, I can't believe I have 12 guys who are like raising money to see me. Why don't I open a school? Why don't I open a worldwide school, which I'll do online, but I'll also teach in-person events, which will be optional. Why don't I open an online school and teach all these chiropractors and, quite frankly, any doctor or healer, chiropractor, acupuncturist, naturopath, medical doctor, osteopath, physical therapist, energy worker, Reiki master. I'm going to teach any doctor or healer how to do what I do. And then we'll have someone in Malaysia. These guys don't have to have freaking T-shirt sales to come see me. And with that said, I opened Zone School of Healing, and now we have almost 900 members worldwide, on the way to tens of thousands. And that's what's going on. It's pretty exciting.
Well, I'll put the link to that down below here so that people can reach out to you. But
I
think
appreciate it.
So no, it's an absolute pleasure, because for as long as I've been on this planet, the big pharma have been desperate to shut people like you and me and Greg up, because everything that we need is out there, and it doesn't come in a bottle. It comes with a little bit of common sense, a little bit of hard work, you know, a little bit of exercise, a little bit of stretching, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And I find myself, I have my inversion table, which I do 2 minutes on every day. And I try and do my walks every morning, and just a little bit of exercise, healthy eating allows me to have a gin and tonic at the weekends.
Good. And I'll tell you two things. One is, of course, you mentioned putting the link, and I appreciate it. We actually made a special link just for Charlie Ward listeners. It's called timelesshealingart.com. timelesshealingart.com. And when any of your listeners or viewers go to timelesshealingart.com, we just made the link for this show, it's going to say, hey, maybe you are a chiropractor or other kind of doctor or healer. You want to join Zone School. Here's where to do it. Or maybe you're a chiropractor or other kind of doctor or healer, and you like what was said on the show. You just want a little more information. Click here. Or maybe you're a lay person, someone who's not a doctor or healer, but you just want to find a certified zone practitioner. Click here. Here's our worldwide directory of certified zone practitioners that I've taught and certified. Or maybe you're a layperson and you just want to learn how to be healthy yourself. Click here. And then I plan on most likely making a whole separate program just for lay people on how to be healthy. So we'll have all their information. And when we launch that program, we'll send them the info. So if they want to,
and if you're just a lay person, you're as valuable as a doctor if you're on the same frequency as Dr. Pete here.
I agree 100%, or more valuable. I agree 100%.
Me too. I have a couple of testimonies I'd like to share. I've been to 6 or 7 of Dr. Pete's live events, and I mean, they're unbelievable things. One of the guys, friends of mine, he came and he had hearing aids. And when he came to the seminar, he uses his phone app to adjust the volume on his hearing aids. And so when he first came, like Saturday morning, he had to turn it all the way up just to be able to hear what Pete was saying. And then Pete talked to his subconscious and he adjusted him. And by the end of the first day, he was able to run it about halfway down. And by the end of the second day, he had turned it down to all the way down because he could hear pretty good. And then Pete told him right at the very end, he said, I believe in 2 weeks, you're going to throw those hearing aids in the trash. And so in 2 weeks, he didn't throw them in the trash. He sold them. So he's still to this day is hearing just fine.
So we now know he's Jewish.
Yeah.
I taught Greg everything he knows about Judaism. Don't worry about it.
Exactly.
Another live event I was in, there was a lady that she wasn't part of the event, but she was invited in or asked if she could come and get a healing. Well, I saw this lady walk in the seminar and she sat about 20 feet to the side of me, and I kept looking at her and I thought, oh my God, this woman is dead. I mean, she did not look like she had life in her whatsoever. I mean, looked like Walking Dead. Well, anyway, she came up when it was time. She came up front, and Dr. Pete, he talked to her for about 15 seconds, maybe 30 seconds. He adjusted her and she was facing towards him and not us. And when he finished talking to her, she turned around and this lady had complete life back into her body. I mean, her color, her sparkle in her eye. And I mean, she had totally come back to life. And when she went up there at first, she gave Dr. Pete a whole laundry list of things that were wrong and why she was dying. And then after he was done, she was sat down in her seat again. And I kept looking at her like, oh my God, this woman is alive. And so those kind of miracles, I mean, happen in all the live events. These are mainly doctors that come to these live events. And it's just amazing the testimonies that you hear every time.
I should just add one thing. I appreciate that, Dr. Greg. I just want to say briefly, one thing I left out, but he reminded me. And again, anyone who goes to that link can have all these choices. I do teach live events that are open to, at the moment, chiropractors or any kind of doctor or healer, and they're open to zone school members and non-members alike. So even if they're not in zone school and you want to attend a live event, and I'm pretty sure that link I gave has one of the choices to attend a live event. But in the meantime, the Zone School website is zonetechnique.com. That's the Zone School website, zonetechnique.com. And there's a area called live events. And if you click on live events, you can attend a live event. The live events are open, like I said, to Zone School members and non-members alike. Any kind of doctor or healer, chiropractor is welcome. As it happens, anyone who comes to a live event, by the end of the live event, if they're not a member of the actual Zone School yet, they tend to join anyway. But with that said, it's open to anyone who's a chiropractor, doctor.
No, we'll put all the links down below. But when Greg was saying about having a list of things that was wrong with her, it's quite interesting that most of that list is actually in here. When you get this right, the rest of it starts to get better. But I've mentioned on many times on this journey that fear will kill you. COVID-19's not got a chance of killing you, but fear has. And you can be scared to death. You can be living in fear, and it can destroy your life. And for the last year, I've had zero fear because I knew what was happening. And I've tried to share that with people in a humble manner so that they understand not to be scared. Because a lot of people would have died this year just out of fear, because the fear mongering that went on by governments and mainstream media was appalling.
Well,
and
actually,
still going on.
I agree with you 100%. And actually, fear is the mother or grandmother or father or grandfather, whatever someone wants to call it, of all the negative emotions.
Yep.
Worry is based on fear. Anger is based on fear. Hate is based on fear. Jealousy is based on fear. Envy is based on fear. Greed is based on fear. Selfishness is based on fear. So if one can overcome fear, they've automatically overcome the rest. Lack of forgiveness is based on fear.
Yeah.
And when people ask, why does the body, and you alluded, well, you more than alluded to it, you said it. When people ask, why does the body even get unbalanced or ill or sick, or why do these conditions come in the first place? I can say, after doing this for a long time, that 99% of the negative things that occur physically in the body are a manifestation of various negative emotions. And like we just said, and those negative emotions are either fear or an emotion which is just a result of fear. So I'm with you 100% on that.
Exactly. And the big pharma and the big tech have been desperate to keep us quiet. And so now we've got a voice, and now we've got our own channel. They can't shut us down. It's a wonderful time to just say to people, you don't know, as I say, I'm not the Messiah. I'm just Charlie. And if you have a look at what we've delivered to you today, you can gain something from it rather than having to go to a doctor and fill yourself up with tablets. Just use a little bit of common sense. And one of the biggest sources of fear right now is the television. And mine's been off for a year now, and I don't miss it. I've now completely come off social media and let the whole team deal with that. So I'm not on any social media. And my son picks up my phone now and he's gone, there's no point me even having your phone because you're not on anything.
Well, actually, I'm with you on that. I haven't watched TV in 20 years. And it's interesting. I had this when you're mentioning about the fear and the ideas that certain so-called doctors put in the minds of patients. I had a woman come to me. This is one of the people who flew in. She was actually Canadian also, but she lived in Canada. And she had severe abdominal pain for 10 years. She was 28. So from when she was 18 till 28, she had debilitating abdominal pain. She was living on, painkillers or what kind of medication, whatever it was. And finally, the gynecologist who had been working with her, I'm sure it was a very sincere gynecologist who was trying their best, said, look, you have to have a hysterectomy, which doesn't sound like a pleasant thing for a 28-year-old woman who didn't have any kids yet. Anyway, so her brother heard about me somehow, and he said, let's go see this guy. So she came. And I'll tell you, Charlie, I told her to come for a week. I said, look, I'll see you 7 days in a row. I'll come in on my days off. I'll just see you 7 days in a row. I mean, the sessions are 5 minutes long, but I'll come in, I'll balance your body, and we'll send you back to Canada. I expect all healed. You will have no pain and won't need a hysterectomy. That was my expectation. That's what I told her I expected. After the fourth day, I think it was on the fourth, which means after 3 sessions, or maybe it was after the fourth. I don't remember. This is a long time ago. But around the fourth day, she told me she was pain-free for the first time in 10 years. Yeah. And she said, should I just go back to Canada? I said, no, well, you're here anyway. I'll just work on you the other 3 days just to kind of lock it in, stabilize it. And that was that. But if you think about it, and by the way, I'm just giving that example. I have hundreds and hundreds of examples just like that. Mm-hmm. And look at this woman. She was 28. She was going to have no uterus and ovaries. And after proper healing, she's fine. And actually, it's funny because about 2 years after that, her brother wrote me an email, unrelated to his sister. Her brother, who lived in Canada, he wrote me an email. He said, hey, remember me, Dr. Pete? And I did remember him because even though I didn't work on him, he did accompany her. So he was always in the waiting room. He was the one who heard about me in the first place, whatever. He's like, remember me? I said, yeah, I remember you, of course. He says, listen, I'm going to be near you in California for like a music festival or something. So I want to come in and get a session with you. I said, oh, no problem. So just 2 years later, he walks in and he's like, hey, I'm like, how's your sister? It's the first thing I said, how's your sister? Oh, she's fine. She has 2 kids now. So, but again, this is an example. We could just spend the next 5 hours. I'll just give you examples. And these are people who were I don't want to say have their lives destroyed. I don't know exactly what that means for these people, but it doesn't seem too pleasant to go down these other so-called medical paths and be ripped to shreds with an overarching theme of fear that just ends up destroying their body and maybe their life.
Yeah. Hey, Pete, tell Charlie about your liver transplant patients. I think that's an amazing story.
This story, Charlie, might sound unbelievable, but what can I say? I'm just going to tell the story. I mean, people can take it how they want. I mean, this is a non-embellished story, fact by fact. People can take it however they want. And let me preface this story, which I think you'll like, Charlie, and thanks for bringing it up, Greg. Let me preface this story by saying, look, I am a chiropractor. I mean, in name only, I think, but I am officially a chiropractor, as Greg is. And I don't treat disease. I don't diagnose disease. I don't treat symptoms, whatever. I balance the body so it can heal itself. Now, a lot of chiropractors can say that, but balancing the body in the zone technique context gets results that no other chiropractor does or can unless they're in zone school. But anyway, with that said, so with that as a context, this happened. It was about 1.5 years ago, I think. Maybe Greg remembers better than me. I think it was 1.5 years ago. This woman came in my office. I think she was 39 years old. I think she was 39. And she looked pregnant to me, Charlie. She appeared to be pregnant, but she was not pregnant. What she had fluid in her abdomen. Her abdomen kept filling up with fluid. And she kept going to, I believe, Stanford Medical Center, something associated with Stanford University. And they kept, or that's how she explained it to me, and they kept draining her abdomen. Now, I don't know if she was having her abdomen drained once a week or twice a week or every day, I forgot, but they were draining her abdomen. They also told her that her liver was so damaged that she needed a liver transplant. So she was on a liver transplant list. They examined her liver. They saw how messed up it was. They said it's not really solvable or fixable through anything. So she's on a liver transplant list. So that's what was presented to me. A woman who looked pregnant, who had all this fluid in her abdomen, and a woman who was on a liver transplant list. So from my perspective, the body is obviously highly imbalanced, and with the zone technique and understanding the principles of healing, there is a way to balance the body. So I told her, we're going to balance your body, and the idea is to get you to 100% healthy. She said, okay. I gave her first session. And then she came, I think, a week later. I gave her second session. Then she came a week later, and I gave her third session. So after her third session, no more, well, actually, I think after the first session, no more filling up of fluid. She stopped needing to get her abdomen drained. And after the third session, they examined her liver. Now, I don't think she called them and said, hey, I have 3 sessions with this guy, Dr. Pete. I want you to examine my liver again. I think they were just examining her liver on a routine, whatever, kind of their own schedule. But when they examined her after the third session, they told her, your liver is totally healed. You're off the liver transplant list. So, I mean, what can you say except for that's exactly what happened? And I actually asked her, because I guess she got a letter from the doctor saying, you're off the liver transplant list. Your liver is totally healthy. So I asked her to send it to me. So I have it. I blocked off her name, but I have that letter.
It's fairly,
and again, that's one of hundreds of examples.
It's fairly clear to me that you're more than a doctor. And I have a very simple philosophy, because I was in a church in South Wales where Ray Bevan was the pastor, but he had a guest pastor, which was Reinhard Bonnke, who had a congregation of 100,000 in South Africa. And he had the ability to lay hands on, because he had a connection to God. And he freaked me out, because he got somebody that was in a wheelchair. He had been in a wheelchair since birth. He put his hands on their knees and then held their hands and walked them across the stage. And I left the building because I was completely blown away. I was like, that's mental. And then I went back home and I thought about it, and I think very logically. And I think I've said it before, I think, because I believe that God made man. If you've got a washing machine that's made by Hot Point and it breaks down, you take it back to Hot Point. So as much as you consider yourself a doctor, I consider you more of one of God's doctors. God has given you the ability to rebalance, to rezone, to re-energize people's body. And I don't think we should underestimate that. It's very, very easy to gratify ourselves for doing it, but this is a power that you have, that's been gifted to you by God or by our Creator, to be able to put right people's bodies that have, let's say, gone wrong, if you like. And it's a wonderful gift that you've been given to do this. You have the talent. God has identified you as a man he can trust with talent, because there are many doctors out there that have not been able to be trusted with this gift.
Well, you know, what's really amazing, Charlie, is that Dr. Pete is very talented in sharing that with other doctors such as myself.
Yeah.
I've seen amazing miracles that I had never seen in my many years of practice. One great example is my wife. She had a disease called Raynaud's disease. It is a incurable condition, and she's had it all of her life. She'd touch a cold steering wheel and her hands would go white. I mean, they look dead. And many people have this condition. And with 2 zone corrections, it has cured her. And that was about 3.5 years ago. And she's never had it since. And she's had this condition all of her life. So Pete, and he teaches in his school, these healers that he passes on the mantle of this healing onto all of us, that we're learning at exponential rates about how healing works and how the body is a direct reflection of our subconscious. And he teaches you about metaphysics and metaphysical healing, which is above or beyond the physical.
Yeah. And
so the great healers throughout history have all tapped into this metaphysical type of healing. And that's exactly what Dr. Pete's approach is. And he's training us to do the same thing.
Just want to add one thing to that. And actually, it's interesting because as Greg was saying that, I was about to say it. I appreciate Charlie's words. And it's very teachable, because we have these, like Dr. Greg and the Zone School members, getting these so-called miracles around the world, miracle after miracle after miracle. And the reason I use the word so-called miracle, it's what the world calls miracles. But there's a word, the word is called supernatural. And I never quite understood the word supernatural, because from my perspective, there's no supernatural. Super means above or beyond. There's just natural law. If you look at the spectacular healers in history, the spectacular, the ones we know about, they just, the way I look at it, they knew how to plug into natural law at the highest level and then get these so-called miracles. So yeah, I mean, if people look at what happens in my office or Dr. Greg's office or zone school members' offices, yeah, they would call them miracles, and maybe the supernatural word would come in here and there, but they're not miracles, because actually the normal state of the body is health. It's actually normal to be healthy. So when people come and say, hey, Dr. Pete, it's a miracle. Well, it's not. I say, I'm thrilled for you. It's not a miracle. We just brought you back to normal. It's normal to be healthy.
It is. And this explains exactly why they do the chemtrails. Because in the normal healthy environment, we'd be absolutely fine. They're having to create illness to boost their own businesses.
Wild, but seemingly true.
Yeah, exactly. It's a huge blessing. Now, from a point of view of, because we now have an audience in 102 countries, which is pretty amazing. But is it possible for you to do zone treatments online on Zoom conversations, or do they need to come and see you?
It's a great question. So there's two kinds of healings, whether it's the zone technique context or any context, which is, well, it's more than two, but for this example, two. There's in-person, where you're sitting in the room with a person. And then there's what's called remote healing or long distance healing. I'm actually pretty good at long distance healing, but I don't love to do it, only because I'm trying to run the zone school and I would be inundated with requests to do it. But I'll tell you a couple things. First of all, I had someone call me recently who I know, and I made an exception for them. So I'm not really going to do long distance healings at the moment, but this woman called me, and her son, who must be, I think he's 7, I'm not sure. He was having bleeding in his stool when he was going to the bathroom, blood, and horrible digestive problems. I guess they went to the medical doctor and they weren't really sure. They said, look, he's basically okay, but his digestion was really screwed. And I did some, long distance sessions, and the kid is doing fantastic. He healed. So I'll just say that. With that said, in zone school, we have actually several long distance healers who specialize in that in the zone technique context. So what I'm going to do is this: I don't want to leave anyone out, but I'm going to think of two. And if Greg wants to, chime in, maybe he knows others, but I know two. So if someone, again, we already talked about those links, and if someone ends up going to the zone school directory on either of those links I mentioned, one woman her name is Lindsay Laidlaw, and she's in Canada. I know she does a lot of long distance zone technique healings. Another one's name is Sky Amy Buckles, and I think she's in Indiana. And I think I know she does a lot of long distance healing. And I don't mean to leave anyone out. There might be 300 other zone school members who do long distance healings, but those two come to mind. Okay. So I'm just mentioning them.
Brilliant. Well, I think that was incredibly constructive. And I think we should do this again, because I think it's very important that we get out to people, that we've got people out there that can heal you without medicine, without doctor, without hospitals, and without all this other rubbish. We can actually do it. We've got everything there. That we just need to tap into the right sources. And once we start,
I'm a testimony of that. I've not even taken an aspirin in over 40 years, and I'm not going to. I don't want to. You have to recover twice when you take medication, once from the side effects of the medication and once from the original problem. So it's like there's no solution there for me. I've always known there is a natural way of healing. And once I was presented with this zone technique with Dr. Pete, it has blown my life away.
Mm-hmm. It's absolutely brilliant.
And by the way, I'll come on anytime. Thank you for that, mentioning that, Charlie. I'll come on once a week. I'll come on anytime.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you guys on here. We'll put all the links down below. So if you can send those across to us, we'll put them down below so everybody can be in contact. But thank you very, very much. It's much appreciated.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Charlie.